So let's say this is the amount of users you bought, you would see that huge effect. The next time you came back to the same channel, you'd have to spend more money to see the same amount of effect, and then an even higher amount of money to see the same amount of effect. So how do you change that? A new feature. So a new feature, a new icon, a new description, new keywords, new images, all of that in the search itself can affect, lifting you back up to the top again. So that, or I'm sorry, lowering you back down to the bottom in this sense. So you're only spending a smaller amount, and then you refresh that cycle again. Come out with a new feature and you refresh the cycle. Any questions on that? So what distribution channels work? There's web banners, reviews, online marketing. Does any of this work? Short answer, no. Long answer, no. Off-device marketing virtually has no effect whatsoever on your install rate. 148 apps, one of the best review sites out there. You can be featured on 148 apps and maybe net a few hundred installs from that. And if you notice, to get to the top 10, you need like 80,000. So how do you really impact that? Channels that are on device. In-app advertising, offer walls, cross promotions, anything on the device itself is going to translate to installs. Do you have a question?
What about really not review sites, but community-focused websites?
Again, anything off device. It doesn't matter what site it is. The most highly trafficked sites translates to virtually no impact on your placement in the store. If you find a few hundred installs valuable, great, but it really isn't going to impact your placement in the store. You need to be at bare minimum in the top 100, whether it's category or overall. If you're not in the top 100, you might as well not be on the App Store. Most installs are initiated by search. About 63% of all installs are done by simple search on the app stores. So the importance of app store optimization is enormous, and I'm going to get to store optimization. Yes?
And what about some, I would call it co-marketing or something like that? That means if your app is featured among the similar apps to one that is really in the top, how does it?
Well, that's cross-promotion.
Okay.
So the more eyeballs you get on device, translates to more installs. Whether you're buying them, whether you're getting them organically, virally. Now again, the most valuable user is going to be an organic install. You can buy your way through the lift, the organic net, seeing 3 to 10x the amount of money that you're spending on return. No, I'm sorry, not on the amount of money, but on the number of users. So if you buy 100 users, you could see 300 to 1,000.
Because lately there is also a feature on Google Play that it writes that maybe you should like to, or maybe you would like to install this game because 90 or many people who played the other game that you have already installed do play this one.
Yeah. So there's Apple has Game Center, Google Play is coming out with some new features, but anything that's on the device that people can see is going to translate to installs. Anything off device, that's just the whole point of this. And then secondly, that search is hugely impactful.
Sorry to push this, but I find channels like Touch Arcade for me extremely influential. I'm a very discriminating app downloader.
Yeah.
I was thinking if my app gets a video review on Touch Arcade, that has to be at least a few thousand installs, right?
Yeah. Well, the best you could net from some of those might be a few thousand, but again, you need 80,000 to get to the top 10. So is it going to impact your placement in the store? Very, very unlikely, if at all. Yeah.
I'm curious where you get the number of searches, 63% of downloads. My feeling is, certainly for games, that's not true. I think for games, a lot more of it is just the charts.
This comes from, I think, AppNeek. There's a couple of, Ian?
Actually, Google did announce 63%, and that was for all apps. So
I've got some, at the end, I've got some tools of the trade that you can use to find all this data, so I'll go over that in the end.
I'd be willing to bet that it's different for games, that search is less so for games. That's just...
Well, right now, 80% of all downloads are games, so if they're saying 63% of all app installs come from searches, it's probably very close for games. It might be bumped a little bit lower, but not that much.
Maybe that's true for Google. I'd be really surprised if that were true for iOS.
AppNeek, I believe, has tools for both, and this is the number that they report overall, and Google reported the same number.
Right, but where did they get the number from?
It's good gut reaction, but this is factual data that...
But it's not from Apple.
No. Apple...
so it's someone's theory.
No, there's actual tools, App Annie, Distimo, there's tools that actually track all of this. Onavo is another one.
Well,
I'll get to those tools at the end.
Okay.
And you can look at them and argue with those tools. I'm just giving you factual
I know
data
the
that they
tools,
provided.
but only Apple knows what the channels are to download particular apps.
No, I'll get to Onavo at the end and explain that. There's a question over here. Yeah.
You said maybe the search kind of relatively of device marketing, because people may see the ads out somewhere outside of their phone and then search the app.
There's tracking that can show when you click through from web to on-device channels, and it's still so relatively low. It's really only on-device channels that really have a huge impact. And there's I'll talk about Onavo at the end, which really, it's pretty insane what they do, but I'll cover that. Now, where online channels do have an effect is in your branding presence when you're trying to raise. If you're going to investors, hey, I've been featured on Touch Arcade and TechCrunch and all these other places, and it's good for exposure of your brand, but it doesn't really translate to installs. It's the only point of this slide. So, some App Store optimization secrets. 75% of all search is done by function, not by brand. So people aren't searching Supercell, they're searching card battle game. They're searching, skateboarding. They're searching something that they want to find, spades, hearts. They're searching by function, not by brand. 50% of users, and this is true for Google Play, I'm not sure about iOS, but 50% of users search at least once a week. So you can see how impactful that is. The longer your app name, so the more words you can get into that app name, the better it is for getting placement in a search. But if you have over 3 words, it could hurt because you could get muddled in the search results.
So, that seems like contradicting information.
Well, a lot of people are using a single word.
Okay, so you're saying 3 words is the sweet spot?
3 words is about, Ian, you had a comment?
I was just going to add, we had 3 people at an ASO meeting a couple years ago, and after the presentation, they got into a good argument over this. There's still a lot of discussion. In general, they agree with what you wrote, but there's a lot of unknowns.
From talking to the ones that are tracking App Store search keywords, there's a few companies out there doing that. I've heard from them that over 3 words does hurt you. It's kind of like the less you have, the lower you are, the more you have, and the more you have, the less effectual. Does that make sense? So 1 word, 2 words, 3 words, 4 words, 5 words, 6 words, if that makes sense. Yeah?
I'm a little confused why there's any relationship between the length of your app name and your...
It's not the length of the name, it's the number of words used. Yeah, so for example, if you're looking, card battle game, people could be searching card, they could be searching battles, they could be searching Magic the Gathering, they could be searching, the more that you have related to the number of searches out there, the better impact it's going to have on a search for your app. Does that make sense?
There's going to be more overlap, I think is what you're saying. There's going to be more overlap for people searching for other things with your app.
So it's an ideally 3 words that are semantically relevant to the searches that you're expecting. I mean, if your app, this is probably obvious to everybody except me, but if your app is, My Silly Game, it's got 3 words, but nobody searches on that.
Yeah, so there's tools to look at the relevancy of specific keywords, and I'll get to that again at the end, where you can actually, there's Searchman SEO, there's a few others that you can do tracking on individual keywords, you can see trends, you can find, there's a lot of great tool sets out there for the keywords themselves. And then as far as the description, Apple, I get to this in another slide, but Apple doesn't even search the description at all. Google does, but they generally like if the word that they search is further down in the description, they're going to rank you last. The earlier it is, generally it's good to have the words that you want to be hot for in the first 2 lines of your description.
So this means you need your keywords on your half name, basically. So
Yes.
you
So
search for card battle game.
Supercell card battle would be the ideal name up there.
They cease and desist a second.
Yeah, I'm for an
Yeah,
example. from
yeah.
the slide.
So I've heard that Apple doesn't actually remove you from using a trademarked term unless if that person who owns the trademark complains, and you could better be sure that Supercell is watching that app store like a hawk and reporting to Apple anytime someone else uses the name Supercell. But yes, in answer to your question.
Yeah,
Ian.
just one point to that, Google will immediately.
Yeah, Google does.
As soon as they get a complaint.
Google does. They immediately remove anything that's trademarked. Apple, I don't think they automatically do. They wait for a complaint to come in and they take action.
Yeah, but if you're building a card battle game, you don't want to be called Supercell, but you want to be called, I don't know, Magic Cards. So it's better if you call it Magic Battle Card, because you know that the keywords people is looking for is battle card game.
Well, yeah. So again, there's a number of tool sets out there that can let you see what keywords are being searched.
Yeah, what keywords?
You want to find ones that are relevant to your game that are being searched the most often.
But once you have the keywords, you have to add them to your title. As much as,
Well, you have your title, you have keywords that you can be searched by, and then you have your description.
okay.
Okay, so comparing Apple and Google. Google uses synonyms, Apple does not. Google will actually correct and fix your search words, Apple does not. Google uses PageRank. Again, that goes back to the formula we talked about earlier, so see that previous slide. Apple doesn't. They don't own search. They don't care. They're not monetizing off of search. Google is. Google uses the description, again, especially the first 2 lines. Apple uses keywords but ignores the description entirely. Now, the Apple description is still important for web search. But again, the translation of web search to an install is fairly rough. And I quoted Ian here. I told him I was going to quote him in this deck. So think of Google Play Search as Google circa 2004, Apple is Yahoo 1995. So pathetic. Very, very pathetic. But the expectation is that both of these are going to improve. So what's important? There's keywords, there's your description, your icon, and the title. What's the order of importance? Icon, icon, icon. They have shown, study after study after study shows that damn little icon will net you installs or will be the factor that gets you ignored. Second most important, the title. Third most important, the keywords. And then your description. Oh, I made a mistake here, I'm sorry. It's entirely ignored on iOS. It's most important, first 2 lines on, I just made these slides right for the presentation. Most important on Android, but Android does search all of the description.
Also screenshots.
Screenshots have some impact.
I would say icon title screenshots, personally.
Icon has shown this is just from studies, what they've shown. Now, I could have added, but screenshots would have been last. It's still important, it's still a factor.
I doubt it. I would think icon title screenshots.
I know you would think, but I also have data at hand that's searchable. So, and here's where I got a lot of this data. App Annie is great for watching trends within categories, within the overall store, seeing rankings. Distimo is kind of like App Annie on crack. You can see a lot of detail, but it's a little bit more expensive, well, considerably more expensive. But you can get, I think, either 3 weeks or 3 months free of Distimo. Searchman SEO is an amazing tool for looking at the keywords, what keywords are hot. You can search by an individual keyword and see the number of searches on that keyword. There's a lot of data around. Appneek can analyze competitive keywords, put alerts on certain keywords. So if someone starts using a keyword, you can send you notifications. It gives you keyword rankings. Now, Onavo is something a little bit unique. Onavo has an app out on the store. I forget the name of it. It might just be Onavo. But what it does is it tells you, the end user, we're going to show you the percentage of bandwidth that each of your apps are using. So you're spending this much time on Facebook, say 73%, 10% on Bank of America, 5% on this, whatever the different apps are that you have. And so as a user, you can then decide, oh, I'm spending way too much time on Facebook, and I'm using up all my data plan by doing that. So it's a tool for the end user, but that's the disguise, that's the mask that they're wearing. In reality, what they're doing is tracking every bit of data. What it does is it creates a VPN on your phone and tracks every click, every ping, everything. It tracks what ads are being displayed in every single app. It tracks how much money is made off of individual ads. It tracks search terms, whether it's in the App Store, in a Google search, in a web page search. It tracks every bit of activity through this VPN, and you agree to it as an end user to send tracking data because you want to see the percentages of usage. Now there, I think, currently around 5 million installs, but it's enough for them to project across the entire App Store the usage. But what this gives you power to do as a developer, now to have access to that data on the back end, I think is around $50,000 a month. So using Onavo as a developer is insanely expensive, but all of the big boys are using it right now to look at their competitors, to see the usage time of someone's app, the number of engagement times that they're getting, to see the search words, to see where installs are coming from, tracking every piece of data that's flying by out there. Did you have a question?
Yes, you are talking about the channels. Maybe you have a list or maybe something like rated on influence on the user, end user of the channels. I mean, you said about Top Joy, maybe some of them also W3 High, maybe some others. You can share the list or something like that.
So what is it that you want to know?
The channels you're talking about.
The list of channels?
Maybe most famous. Or where I can find something else. Not just.
There's hundreds. AdMob. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on and on. If you send me an email, here's my email, jdillman@yetizen.com. I'll send you a link that lists probably 100 different channels. But there's far more than that exist. There's just, sorry, there you go. There's, banners within games. There's, there's cross-promotional services. The offer walls, so W3I, which is now NativeX, and TapJoy are examples of offer walls. So everybody know what an offer wall is? Anybody not know what an offer wall is? So an offer wall is, say I'm playing poker, Zynga poker, and I want to get more chips, but I don't want to pay for them. It comes up with an offer, download this other game, and you get some free chips. So I download that other game, I get some free chips in my game. So that's an offer wall, is when it gives you offers for in-app currency or different items or whatever you're doing. Now, the user that you gained in this other app, so I gained a user from Zynga Poker, is very worthless to me. That person's just going to delete my app after having installed it. But what it does do is it affects my placement in the App Store rankings because it's considered an install. So it bumps me up, it gets me more visibility to the organic users, which I really care about. So that's an offer wall, but there's all sorts of in-app advertising. Yeah?
It strikes me that, I wonder, I don't know the answer to this, offer walls might be even worse value for money in Google if Google is factoring in your uninstall rate. Apple considers your engagement rate.
True. Yeah.
And offer wall players that typically have poor engagement, but they don't look at that very much.
Yeah, so the biggest component on both of those formulas is your overall total number of installs. So when you're just simply factoring your ranking in the app stores, it's the most important factor. Now, again, they are tracking engagement. If your engagement's bad, it's going to affect you. And they're tracking your uninstall rate, so it's going to affect you. But when you're doing a burst campaign to get to the top, you may suck it and get some bad users, but it gets you to the top.
Yeah.
And then for your sustained campaigns, what you want to do is track all the different channels that you're spending on. And there's two sides to the formula. The lifetime value of the user and the cost of acquiring that user. And you want your lifetime value to be more than the cost of acquisition. So when I'm buying users on Tapjoy, my lifetime value is really small. My cost of user acquisition is high, but it bumps me up in the store. So in the long term, once I start doing sustained campaigns, I don't want to spend on those types of channels anymore. I want to spend on channels that are going to net me more revenue positive users. So that's why it's important to track that data of the lifetime value from the specific channels that you're spending on initially to do the burst, and then only sustain campaign on those types of users.
Just to echo that, you should be tracking your success on all these campaigns anyway.
Yeah.
And the different channels, and also A/B testing things. If you're
Yeah.
concerned about offer walls with your group, A/B test it, see if it makes a difference.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely.
Can you talk a little bit about the resistance from Google and Apple to offer walls?
So Apple did ban offer walls, sort of. Natively, you can't have an offer wall built into your app, but if it's, I believe if it's hosted through HTML view, they can't really limit what's viewed in a web page display. So some of the companies are getting around that by having it be a web display within your game as opposed to natively built within the game. Google right now doesn't care, but those things can change at any time. So either be cautious of where you're putting your marketing dollars or use those channels now while they're available. But right now, Google isn't limiting offer walls yet. And is that a question? Okay. Yes?
Are there any best practices identified around icons that work?
Well, really you should talk to a graphic designer, but anything that, so just from my personal experience,